Well, welcome everyone to Agent Tactics. As you can tell, I'm not Jeremy Knight. My name's Raj Sahoo. I'm a realtor in Austin, Texas. And I got your new favorite Austin realtor on this, who's going to discuss virtual assistants and how we both leverage VAs to build our businesses. Ian, what's going on?
Oh my gosh, everything's going on, isn't it?
Yes,
I think
exactly.
I think that's
In
really it. I think what happens right now, or what's happening right now, is that we're all kind of in a reset period in business, or a lot of us are in a reset period. And if you're just getting started, then it's a period to learn and grow and to be ready to scale because I think there's going to be a lot of shifts in the market. So that's what's going on.
Absolutely. In other words, build your systems now so you can take advantage of the market that is always cyclical and will always come back up. And you can take advantage of it big time when it does come back up. So that's great. Well, I'm glad I have Ian on board because I have my own way of working with VAs. And after discussing this in depth with Ian, I found that we have both different styles, which makes sense, right? We're all different people. We all have our own effective way of working with VAs. So I'm going to get into mine that's more content creation oriented. Just a little bit of a background. I started a YouTube channel back in April of 2021. I'm the least creative person you'll ever meet. I'm more systems oriented. And so I just started doing home tours. And I wanted to go after quantity of home tours rather than quality. I knew I wasn't going to be this amazing cinematographer and capture these homes. So I just wanted to step up on quantity. So literally, I had 40 to 60 homes on a list that I wanted to capture. And I found pretty quickly just keeping that in my head was really difficult. Editing the videos was very difficult, throwing on music, creating descriptions, making thumbnails. There's so much that goes into content creation. It's overwhelming. Hiring a VA was the best decision I ever made because unloading that work on somebody who's overseas that was cost effective and also just so much time saving, it made a lot of sense to do that. So later on, I'm going to share my screen and show you what I've done to leverage a VA to create content, both on YouTube, now on Instagram, and now I'm about to expand to multiple channels. And I'm able to do that because the system that I have in place. Before I get into how I found and hired a VA, Ian, can you give a little bit of a description of how you use VAs? I know it's a little bit different.
Yeah, man. I would say that what I've found is that um, I'm kind of an idea factory. Like I have all the ideas and I'm running out of time to get so many of these things done. And so what I need is a support system to be able to capture the ideas and focus on a plan to execute. And so I have leveraged VAs to capture a lot of my information, to continue communication with projects and systems that are growing and currently existing. And so my what I've been doing is just keeping people basically in a constant state of communication. And then I meet with my VAs frequently to make sure that everything is moving along the appropriate path. And so it's almost like I take the multiple business approach where I've got VAs that are dedicated to all these different tasks. All these tasks fall into different kind of business categories, and it keeps things running pretty darn smooth.
Absolutely. And there are multiple times where I'm communicating with Ian and then one of his VAs gets on the email and just takes care of the rest of the conversation. And it made sense. There was no reason for Ian to step in that moment. He's got a lot of VAs that he leverages in that way. So I'm excited to hear about that. I noticed there's a lot more people joining. So what I'd like everybody to do, if you're already working with a VA, throw a 1 in the chat. But if you've never hired a VA before, you don't have anybody working for you, throw a 2 in the chat. And while people are doing that, I want to mention this is Agent Tactics. This runs every Friday at 10 a.m. Central. I know Jeremy Knight's usually running this, but we're happy to step in while he's traveling. But the goal here is just to get great content out there for agents in many different facets of their business because rising tide raises all ships, right? I always find when I give ideas out to people, I get more ideas in return, and then all of our businesses increase. And that's really the end goal here. Getting into how to find and hire a VA. So that's where we'll start. Then we'll talk about how to build like an SOP or standard operating procedure around a VA, how to communicate with them, and really how we use them. And that's where I'll share my screen. But first, if for some people that are in the chat here, I'm seeing some ones, I'm seeing some twos. I even see from Katie a 1.5. I love that answer. You're in the hiring process. So this could be applicable to you and to everybody who hasn't hired. And for others, finding and keeping a VA sometimes is the most difficult part. So you have to hire once you lose one. So I'll get into that right here by stating, I think the number one way of finding people quickly is go to Fiverr and Upwork. There's so many people that are looking for gigs on Fiverr and Upwork. Ian, do you mind putting Fiverr and Upwork in the chat so everybody has those websites? These are just gig websites, so you can hire so many different facets of your business out on those websites, and there's tons of virtual assistants. I've found, and this is the most difficult part, you do need to go through a ton of VAs to find the right one for you. So the best way I've found of doing this is find 20 VAs that have good reviews and send them what I would call a job description. And what I would do as the key ingredient to that job description is put in a minimum hours a week that you're going to give them and a firm hourly rate. That tells them if I can land this job with this realtor, that I'm going to get paid X amount every single week. And what you're doing is you're leaning in on that pain point that they have, which is to constantly make money. They have to keep finding gigs and keep finding gigs, and they're tired of doing that. So if you offer them a minimum amount, you're going to grab their attention in a lot of cases, especially if there's a need there. The second thing I would do in the interview process is I would give them a task and I would say, hey, I'm going to pay you $5 and I'm going to ask you to edit this one video. And for content creation, you should create like a formula that you think works. You should do that on your own, in my opinion. You should be editing on your own. It's going to be tedious at first, but you're going to learn some things in the process. And after you do that for 3 to 10 videos, you're going to figure out what your needs are. And then your goal should be to go to that VA and say, here's a video, and here are some instructions, and here's a video example of what I need from you. I want you to use this part in that video, this part in that video, this part in that video where I edit it in this way, and I want you to do that for me. And what you're trying to test is their skills, right? Their editing skills. And what's going to happen is 15 out of those 20 people are going to bomb that example. They're going to just, it's going to be bad, right? And you're going to know you can throw them to the side. But there's probably going to be 4 to 6 good ones that show they have some editing skills. They can be your video editor. And I would take those 4 to 6 VAs, and then I would give them a second interview, offer to pay them $5 and say, okay, here's what I want you to do, and be very detailed. And that's where for editing and, for some of my YouTube videos, I'll speed up drone footage or I'll slow it down in this area. Or if I'm editing a reel, I'll ask them to go into the main living area and then slow it down when we're panning that main living area or a kitchen. And I'm just trying to see some basics that they can do without me explaining every little thing. And then from the 4 to 6 good ones, usually 1 or 2 stand out as good. And that's where I make an offer and bring them on to a minimum amount. Minimum amount is usually like 10 hours a week is what I found. I started at $6 or $6.50 an hour with my VA. I find for a lot of VAs, they're either working for like an agency at $3 an hour. Those agencies charge you 10 to 14 bucks an hour, but really on the back end, they're paying that person like $3 an hour, and they're taking the bulk in profit. And so I find if you double what they're making at an agency, or you just offer them consistent work every week, $6, $7 an hour is what I've seen as a good rate. And that's a very general statement. Obviously, there's different uses of VAs, but that's at least what I've found. Once you hire them, then I think it's all about communication and building out an SOP. And I'll get into that in a second. But Ian, I want to throw it to you. What do you think about that? Honest feedback, and I'm sure you do something different, right?
I, I do. Some of that I employ, some of it's a little different. In fact, I'm throwing a curveball here and I'm dropping this in the chat. I have a lot of connections across different countries now, just because I've traveled a lot and I have built up some relationships. I'm actually going to Colombia in November, first week of November, to launch. a VA service company there with a couple friends that live in Colombia, and they've been building this system over there. So I bring that up because one of the questions was, what's the pricing? And I noticed you talked about the pricing, right? So I know this is being recorded. Hopefully my VAs aren't watching this, but I have VAs that make $7 an hour. I have VAs that make $2.50 an hour. What ends up shifting is the quality of the work, the expected skill set, and then the location, and with the location comes cultural norms, cultural expectations, and then also languages, right? So for me, dialect is important if they're going to be customer facing, right? I want to make sure that they have a good cadence. The internet, do they even have a solid internet connection? You'd be surprised how challenging that is to find a VA that has a solid internet connection. And one of the reasons I bring that up is because I require that when we're on meetings like this, everyone shows their camera. I don't care who you are. Everybody shows their camera. There's no excuses because we're in a video first society in the United States today. And so I want the VAs to be comfortable with that. So I've got a VA in Egypt. I've got VAs in Philippines, India, and now I'm onboarding some Colombia VAs. So yeah, there are so many variables related to the price. And then when you're hiring, most people are hiring because they just need a VA, but they don't actually know what they want the VA to be able to do. I've taken a slightly different approach where I know what some of my gaps are, and I know a lot of the things that I do. So I was always editing my own videos. I was doing all of my paperwork. I was doing all of my marketing all on my own. And so I said, okay, what are the things that I don't want to do? How do I divvy those up and then turn those into people, other people, agents, if you will, virtual assistants, right? And so now I have anytime I have a task, let's say the task is creating shorts for YouTube. Okay. The skill set is somebody who knows how to edit and knows how to have YouTube. Knows how to leverage YouTube. And so I have a VA that originally came from an agency. And just like to Raj's point, if you pay them well enough to where they don't have to worry about the agency fluctuation and instability at the agency, then they'll jump ship, right? Like, so I didn't not intentionally poach this person, but this person had worked for like Netflix and a couple other like major brands and is a graphic designer. And I thought, well, that's a really wonderful skill set. And already had access to certain platforms like Adobe Premiere and some of these other things. And so whenever I'm talking to people about, hiring a VA or hiring any kind of assistant, I said, well, you don't know what's a good skill set unless you know that topic yourself. So I know what I'm looking for in an editor because I used to edit all my videos, and I've gone from low end to CapCut to DaVinci Resolve, like completely high-end cinematography style editing. So I know if somebody's full of it. And so now I've realized that I have this VA that has the skill set, maybe not as much as I would like, but I'm paying a very fair wage for their location. And he's been with me now for a year and a half, this particular one. And so across the board, each person is going to have a completely different skill set. So when I'm hiring, I'm searching for that particular skill set. I'm also searching for scalability long-term. So one of the requirements that I have for all of my VAs is that they dedicate an hour every week to learning a new skill. And I never want to hear excuses about they don't know how to do something. If they don't know how to do something, that goes on their list for skills that they need to learn. Because I don't want to say, do you know this? I want to say, how can we get to the point where you've learned this? That's a conversation for later. So yeah, hiring, I start with the tasks. I start with the skill sets that I need. And then I don't know if this fits in this subsection, but I actually have a lot of them teach each other. And we'll go into that later.
And that was really good. And as I mentioned before, there are millions of virtual assistants out there. So there's different ways that you can approach this. The second way, because I'll tell you, going through Fiverr and Upwork is a marathon. It's very frustrating. I think it took me probably about 25, 30 different interviews to land somebody great. And by the way, that person's been with me now for almost 2 years, and we have not talked on Zoom for over 18 months. So I've not talked to them on the phone or Zoom. Everything's been done through just this Trello platform that I'll show in a second. And we just communicate through text on that Trello platform. Um, Going back to landing somebody on Fiverr Upwork, it is a marathon. What I find is also a good way to do it, which is much easier, is network with other agents and tell them, hey, do you have a VA that needs an extra 5 to 10 hours a week? For so many people, especially me, I told every VA that I was interviewing is that I know a lot of other realtors that want to get into YouTube, that want to get into video, and also need video editing. So I might only offer you a minimum of 10 hours a week, but I'm confident within the first 3 to 6 months of working together, if we can do good work together, I can find you another few realtors that can get you 40, 50 hours a week easily. And that's exactly what I did. I found other people, and after 4 months, that VA was very loyal to me because I was looking out for their best interests, right? I was getting them work, which is exactly what they wanted. They want a full work week. And I'm very confident that whatever gigs that they were doing on the side, they just stopped all of that. And now they've been working essentially full time for me, as well as three other realtors in my marketplace that I mentor on YouTube. Now my VA is tapped out, but anytime they find somebody, I always tell them, keep an open ear. If you have anybody around you where they're in the Philippines, just let me know. I always have other realtors that are interested. So that'd be another way to do it. That way you approach it kind of as a team and you offer their biggest pain point, which is full-time work consistently on a weekly basis.
I do want to jump in and add to that because one of my other VAs that had been with me for quite a long time, I see Justin on the call. Shout out, Justin. One of Justin's friends, Sarah Tufano, who's an elite agent out of Connecticut, she had a VA that she wasn't leveraging full time. And she was one of the people that I was like, hey, I need some assistance in this, this, and this. And she's like, I think I have the perfect person. And so we started talking and we ended up splitting time for this person. And I don't know. I don't think Sarah's on this call, but it was exactly as you said. I know that now I'm leveraging this person full time as one of my virtual assistants. So the networking is huge. In fact, if you look at a lot of these Facebook groups, Discord channels, a lot of these places where there's networking happening, there are other people that are doing that have VA services. In fact, even in this chat, you see that same thing. I was using, there's like a Busy Bee service. There's a bunch. If you're part of the Tom Ferry network, they have services. There's VAs all over the place. LinkedIn is another kind of unrealized resource because a lot of professionals are on there, but also a lot of VA companies know that VAs are kind of taking off or had been taking off for many years. So that's a place. Tim Ferriss, he's one of my favorite authors. He wrote a book called The 4 Hour Work Week. Within that book, he talks about different VA services. So there are a lot of them out there, a lot of them. So Rebecca just posted in the chat. She's got a guy who's looking for more work. Wait. Yeah, more work. So that's a great opportunity to have a conversation with Rebecca White and see if there's some kind of collaboration you can do there. I think the thing that ends up shifting a lot is what your expectation of skills are versus what your partner's expectation of skills are. They're often very different. Most people don't know what the other, it's what, talk to one hand or one hand's not talking to the other. That happens a lot, especially in this situation, which I'll address in a little bit.
Rebecca, can you drop in the chat or unmute and say, are you using that VA for CRM stuff, or what activity are they doing on a weekly basis? Drop it in the chat.
Yeah, hey, I can just talk about it. Yeah. So I've had one VA I've had for a number of years. This one gal found me, and then she brought him to me, and then she left, and I hired him. And he can do video editing. He does my reels. He can create website videos. He can do all kinds of stuff. And he does have a degree in all this, some kind of technology. And he wanted like $10 an hour to start, but I paid him $8 for that. And if he does other stuff like my blog posts, then I pay him $7.50 for that. So he makes between $7.50 and $8 an hour. I got him on my own, and he's only part-time. So he's the one who's available. He works for another Tom Ferry gal for 10 hours a week as well. So he works for me like 10, 12, maybe 15 hours a week, depending what I need. The other two I got just in June. My coach is Patrick Ferry, and Patrick knows everybody. So he checked out all the companies, and a lot of them, like they said, they may be charging you $10 an hour, like Virtue Desk, and they're only giving the VA half of that. So what's good about Sphere Rocket is they cap, you pay a fee to them, and you can have like, it starts out you can start out using the VA, their services for free, the company, and you just pay the VA directly. So the VA works me whatever I want them to work, and I pay them directly. Sphere Rocket went and found, and I have a whole document about this I can drop in the chat, but they found a whole bunch of candidates for me to interview. I interviewed, I guess I could put my video on for a minute. I interviewed 5 people. I really liked 2 of them. I was very torn because I needed an admin first. So I came up, and my coach helped me come with questions. And there's the book, Buy Back Your Time. He really highly recommended that book. Let me show it to you. And they actually send this to you, but I already had it, and I've been listening to it on Audible. So this book is really highly recommended. Buy Back Your Time. And the very first hire you should do probably is an admin if you don't have one already, but everyone says that. And then this other guy, Harry, he said he could do admin stuff because he had 17 years of management experience, but he was really good with social media stuff. And he was only $5 an hour. Everybody I interviewed was between $5 and $6 an hour. And the one gal, she wanted 7. I said, look, this other guy's 5. Would you do 6? And she said, yeah. So I pay one of them 5, and he's actually the best one I have, and he's the one I pay least. Then my overhead to Sphere Rocket went from 600 when I had one VA to 900 when I had 2. So I'm basically paying, you count the overhead divided by the number of hours with both of them, and the $5 I pay him, I'm paying him the equivalent of $7.81 an hour. But when you get up, that 900 overhead is basically up to 5 VAs. So that's $225 per VA if you have 5 of them. Divide by actually, if you have 4 VAs, I mean, it's $225 a week to have a VA overhead. And if you have 5 VAs, what does that come out to? Like 50, not even $50 extra per VA. So it's basically a dollar extra an hour in overhead instead of $5 like most companies. Does that make sense? I'll put my Google Doc in there because that explains it, or anyone wants to join that group that I have, because everybody talks about this, and I think everyone should have a VA, and I have 3 now, and I'm very, very happy. And Sphere Rocket has a thing where if there's any issues that go wrong, they you can, obviously, you can get out of the deal or whatever, and you can always fire them anytime you want. They also train you about the Philippine holidays, and they train you about the culture, and all that stuff is super important as well.
So good.
Those are such good points. They're
really good.
Like rainy seasons and hurricanes and time zones and what your work hour expectations are and whether or not they need to travel. So there's so many variables in there. And so I would love if you would share that document. I think it'll be helpful for everybody.
Great. Yeah. I think it's in the group, but I'll find it and do it real quickly here. I'm trying to get in the shower. I've got to take my car into the shop. Anyway, I'll figure it out.
Thanks for that info, Rebecca. Ian, I think you're alluding to it's like a lot of holiday, like Christian holidays, like Christmas and stuff like that. Easter, it's important for them in most cases to take off.
Depending on where you are. I also forgot that I have 2 VAs in Switzerland. I didn't forget.
Oh, wow.
Announce it. So I've got 2 VAs in Switzerland as well. And so European culture is very different from, let's say, Filipino culture. So and the timing and the availability is far different too, and the work expectations.
Yeah. And I want to lean in on that for a second. I find just like treating them like a human being, like they're your coworker is important. I don't think that I would usually think that that doesn't need to be said, but I've had a lot of VAs just kind of like unload of like their past experience working with other realtors and what it was like. And it's unbelievable how people treat them. And it's like, this is your employee. You can have somebody stay with you long term. They can be very loyal to you, but you just have to, treat them with respect. And I don't think I need to say that on this call, but I can tell you it goes a long way when you give them off holidays and you just let them take off when they need it. And I think that's really important, right? And that's I think a big reason why I've kept somebody on for a couple years now. Um,
So that I think while I haven't done this yet, I've been to the Philippines, but I haven't visited my VAs in the Philippines. And so I'm looking at travel options to for that purpose, right? To say, what can I do to go spend time or somehow spend time with these people because they're people, right? Like they have families, they have pets, they have relate like this is a wonderful opportunity if we can leverage it. And so like the Colombia trip that's coming up is to go spend time with the people that will be onboarding and make sure I get to know that they're good people and kind of see their lives and see how I can impact that. Because if you understand that, they'll, and you're like you said, you treat them like people because they are, and that's what matters at the end of the day. Because we don't like, let's be real, we don't need VAs. Most of what you need to do can be done with AI, but a lot of people don't want to learn it or take the time to do it. So VAs are a novelty and a commodity, and it's wonderful to have the human relationship. So if you can leverage that and build that, then I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, good comment and good feedback from Rebecca as well. I want to run through some of these questions, and then that will also take us to the next part.
Well,
Basically,
I was going
yeah,
to
go ahead,
say, yeah,
Ian. Yeah.
Scott has some questions.
Yeah.
I saw post in there, and then Rebecca's posted some stuff.
Yeah. So Scott asked, how do you pay these folks 1099? No, if they're not a US citizen, from my understanding, we don't need any of that stuff. It's just through not giving tax, legal, or financial advice, right? So I use exactly what Rebecca said. I used the Wise app. I actually had to pull out my phone. Thanks, Rebecca. It is the Wise app. And I use that very easy to just send them money overseas. I find a lot of people want Wise. Scott, you also asked about username passwords. Don't ever give your username password out. All of these places, YouTube, Instagram, Dropbox, there's a way for them to just be added. I think it's an editor. Basically, whatever one that they can add content, but they can never delete it. And I'm not worried about my VA deleting it, but I'm always worried about somebody who works for me getting hacked, right? Everybody's getting hacked these days, and the last thing I want is somebody getting into my account and clearing all of my videos off, right? It would destroy my business. So that's why I never username password, just add them as an editor where they can never delete any of your content. I think it's editor. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, there's editor or manager accounts in most of these, but that's actually a really interesting point because a lot of people, when they're going through the hiring process for VAs, they're not thinking about, or they may not be thinking about all of the ancillary costs. Okay, it's kind of like you buy a car. People are like, "Oh, I bought this car. This is the payment." But what about the gas? What about the maintenance? What about the oil changes? All that sort of stuff. Same thing with VAs. When you hire a VA, you also have to think, are they having access to your CRM? Because if you're not giving them direct access via password, then oftentimes there's going to be an enhanced cost for a team version of that CRM, for a team version of a lot of these apps. For something like YouTube and most of the social media stuff, there is just a manager account and you don't have to pay additional for that. But for things like Canva and a couple other tools that I'll get into in a little bit, that increases your monthly cost. And it's strange because it almost costs more than the VA in a lot of situations. But Rebecca brings up a really good point in there. She says she uses Screenshot Monitor, LastPass, and NordVPN. So let's talk about the VPN. A virtual private network allows you to spoof your IP. All that means is you can have people pretend like they're in the United States or in another country. So a great example is, I forget what software, I think the software is Beehive, which is a CRM. They wouldn't allow my VA to have an account, her own account, because she was in the Philippines. And so a VPN will allow her to pretend that she's in the United States so that she can have an account. LastPass is another super interesting solution. I hate the platform, but it is one of the most secure platforms out there. So LastPass will create a variable string. How would I say this? Will garble your login and your password and keep it secure on their servers. So that way, when someone needs access, they're getting access, but not to your password. They're getting access to this app, and this app is then logging into the other app. Right. So if let's say YouTube, let's say it was your YouTube account and you didn't do the whole team thing, then you would log in to LastPass. The VA would log into LastPass, say, I want to log into YouTube, and then LastPass will log into YouTube. So they never actually see the password. So those are very good points, Rebecca. Thanks.
And then screenshot monitor. I might have missed that if you didn't cover it, Ian. Do you mind if I cover that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so screenshot monitor, I'm assuming it's like Time Doctor or some of these other ones. It takes a screenshot of your VA's computer screen and it's randomized, so they never know when that shot's going to be done. And that's just an extra layer of accountability so that if they bill you hourly, within that hour, there's randomized screenshots to make sure that they're working on content. So you don't see like a ESPN or whatever the equivalent is on their screen, and they're billing you for those hours that they're watching like soccer or something like that, right?
Yeah. I'm going to say I don't really use it for monitoring that much because I got better things to do than keep an eye on them. But what makes it easy, you can track the hours they work. So when you know how to pay them, so you can put in they work Monday through Saturday. That's 42 hours times the hour. And it makes paying them super easy without keeping track of it daily or trusting them.
That's really interesting because the task manager, project manager that I used actually allows you to take the task and then assign a time to the task. And so there's almost like a meritocracy to it where the tasks they do, the time that it takes, it shows that there is no screenshots needed or anything like that because they're in the task at the time. But yeah, there's so many different ways to manage this. I like it.
That's good. Yeah, mine started on one of those screenshot monitors. I forget which one, but then I've gone to Trust. But hey, to each their own. I like that you have that extra layer of accountability. That's good. So one question on here was, and I just lost it. I think it was Kelly Gonzalez asked. She said she just wings it. Here it is. Guess Kelly said, "Guess I shouldn't expect the VA to just read my mind." And I thought that was really interesting because sometimes, and I had this same frustration, Kelly, a few years ago when I started in this. I remember just sending a video to a VA and I said, okay, cut the intro part out and dial back this middle part back to the front. All those drone shots in the middle needs to be at the front. And then at the end of the video, I want you to fade the video into that last exit video where it's just me in front of the home. And she wrote back, I have no idea what any of this means. And that's when I realized communication is super, super important. And knowing how to do these things up front is really important. So I'll spare pulling up Adobe Premiere Pro because it is a bit of a clunky software. I've learned how to use it. It's how I learned 3-4 years ago how to do everything. It's just a bunch of YouTube videos to learn how to use like Adobe Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro, or Ian uses CapCut a lot, which I think is much more simple to use, much more user-friendly. But basically on Adobe Premiere Pro, what I've done is I learned one facet of editing so that for my VA, when I explain it to my VA, I'll take a video or a screenshot of my screen and I'll just say, when I tell you to fade in music and then fade out, this is how you do it. And I'll take a minute-long video to just say, go to this part at the front of the audio clip, click this button, drag it over here, click this button, and that's how you fade in. And that's how I taught my VA up front so that they knew exactly how I wanted music to fade in and music to fade out. Then she said, when I said cut the intro means this video when we're leading up to this long shot. Like you have to explain what each of those mean. When I said cut the video and to the beat of the song, change different clips. In a lot of cases, they're not going to know what that means. but I'll take a video of my screen and I'll play the song and I'll say, when I put up a finger, I want you to change the video from one video to the next. And literally the song will play. I'll take a video of my screen and I'll just put up my finger every time the beat changes. So that for all the songs where there's multiple videos that are being clipped in to the beat of the music, they are changing it based on a video that I sent to them, showing them exactly where I want to change it. So that's the level of detail that I'll go to make sure my communication is very clear and concise. And I find making videos is the easiest way to do that for me, because I hate sending messages anyway. I think a lot of things can get lost in translation. Ian, I know you can relate to that. Ian always sends me voice memos every time I ask him a question. And I love it because I get Ian's voice explaining it to me and I can understand it a lot better. And so when I say sharing videos, I'll get into this a little bit more in detail, but I want to just show you up front. This is a board that I created where I'm, just made a recent change where I'm going all in on Instagram. And as you can tell, I got about, 25, 30 videos in my first week going. I'm able to do that because I got a videographer who's actually right now getting shots of homes here in Austin. And then I have a video editor that's been with me for a while. And what we started is we created an SOP, standard operating procedure. It's basically, hey, this is the task list that I want done on every short form video. Edit the thumbnail, edit the video, and then add music, and then post it. We use Metricool. I've been having some issues with Metricool, but for now, I think we're going to use it. And for each of these, I just create a task list. And so that task list usually has, like this one, has a video that explains exactly how I want them to write a description. And basically, this video goes into, hey, Ryan, getting all of the data from a builder's website, throwing it into ChatGPT, and then asking ChatGPT to make an Instagram description. In this video, I make comments like, if ChatGPT says anything about family, that needs to be removed, right? Familial status is a protected class. I don't want any of that stuff in the description, right? And so I get very detailed in this video explaining that. I'll probably one of these days go back through the video and just write a task list. I think my editor's already doing that, and I'll throw it back into my SOP. And I'll get very detailed in this SOP. I mean, I'm just getting started on this, so this will probably get to like 10 to 15 different items for each of these tasks. And this is important so that my editor knows exactly what they need to do for each video. And also, heaven forbid, if I lose my editor for some reason, I can take another VA and just throw them into this system that's already in place. And the explanation of how to do these things is already here. I don't have to do it over and over again. I maybe just have to answer some questions. And I found this has been really useful building out these task lists for my editor, because now when we go into like a new activity, like Reels is a little bit different from long form YouTube. We have this task list that we're building off of. It's been really tedious in the beginning, but I know now it's going to be streamlined, and it's already starting to. I think you can see that I started this maybe 2 weeks ago, and now we already have, I don't know, like 10 to 20 videos ready to go, ready to post. And I feel like I can do these in my sleep now. That is, by the way, backing up, this is Trello. It's a software platform that I use to organize all of my content. My VA and I have been on this for a couple years. Some people use Asana. Some people use Monday. There's lots of software platforms that organize these things. But I found I love working with this. I've used it for years. And we use it for, this is Reels. This is what I use for my second YouTube channel, which has been a little bit inactive. And then this is my core YouTube channel. So these are all posts that have been done over the last several months. As you can tell, we're tracking a lot of things. And of course, my videographer's tied into this as well. So really all I do on a weekly basis is give addresses. My videographer does everything else, gets all the shots, uploads all the footage. My editor takes care of everything from there. All I'm really doing is guiding them. So I'll go in, I'll double check some things, and I'm really just down to voiceovers. So as you can probably tell, I do a lot of home tours, And on those home tours, all I'm really doing now is voiceovers. My videographer and editor is doing most of the legwork. Ian, thoughts?
Well, I mean, obviously, people are asking about it because this is a genius methodology. Um, I think it's interesting that people are asking for you to share your Trello board, but I'm gonna say this because you can do whatever you want. But a lot of times when you get the process from somebody else, it's not going to be your pro. It's good for an outline, but it's not going to be the process that works for you. And so, especially like this is for house tours. I don't know how many realtors are focusing on house tours as their primary lead gen option, but um, yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious what people want done, not what they want shared. So you said that you use Chat GPT to break out the what was it? To break out the tasks that the VA does?
That was for
Oh, the
creating like a description. Yeah, just
description.
writing
Yeah,
a
yeah.
description. Yeah.
So, and I think anybody who wants a process like this to throw in a Trello, you could actually just ask ChatGPT to do that, right? Say, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm going to add it to a Trello board. You are a professional social media manager. Create the task list that I will import into Trello based on these activities, and then it can throw that together for you.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of people ask about SOP and can they have my
Yeah,
SOP. I'm happy to share anything that would help, but I'm telling you right now, it's not going to help.
it's not going to
My
help.
SOP is based on my target audience. My target
Well,
audience are detailed software engineers that are very, they want all the details of new construction home tour plans. So my SOP is all around getting them that data. And if that's not your target audience and you're not doing a lot of new construction, it's pretty useless for you to do. Also, I would recommend don't start with somebody else's SOP. Start with what are your strengths and what are the needs in the market and how do your strengths apply to those needs in the market. That's where you need to start. And then you build an SOP around how your strengths cater to the needs in the market, right? So, I have somebody who I'm mentoring and they're in their city. Nobody's talking about apartment rentals in the suburbs, and they're in a fast growing suburb where there's tons of apartment complexes coming up, and those apartment complexes are offering 2x the amount of rent. So now we're building an SOP around what that looks like to create content. And his SOP is very different from mine. It's not just a bunch of home tours. It's more about like what's walkable around those areas. So we're talking about like restaurants, shops, a coffee shop or a dog bar or whatever that's close to where they are. And we're building out a complete SOP of how to provide that content around these apartment complexes. So that kind of gives you an idea of like everybody's different and everybody's going to have different content. And so I think it's really important you start that from scratch. What I think would be even more helpful is like, how do you start that? You need to have that conversation early on of who your target audience is, and what do they want before you can get these VAs. I think people start with VAs and they have no idea what to even outsource. Early on, before I had a VA, before I had a transaction coordinator or anybody on my team, it was just me. I was talking with Jeremy Knight and Ian, and I was talking to both of them of who I need to target, who's my target audience, and what do they want to see. And once I identified who that target audience was, and then I started chatting with people like Ian, who's really good at branding. I started talking with Jeremy Knight, who is the biggest YouTuber in my metro, the Austin metro. I started chatting with them on what that looked like. They had me going in a direction that targeted my audience. And I got better and better and better at doing that. And I built an entire SOP around that. Everybody should start there and then build an SOP and then bring on VAs. Ian, are you with me on that?
I absolutely am. And I want to provide another like methodology that I employ to do this, right? So you were focusing specifically on content creation. I think a lot of people want to get into content creation, don't know where to start, and they think hiring a VA is going to be the answer to that.
Yeah.
So I would say, just like you had mentioned, understanding your target and who you're currently serving, and then understanding the things that you know how to do, and turning that into an SOP first, and then delivering that to a VA is going to be wildly beneficial for so many reasons. Yeah, for so many reasons. But I'm going to share a couple things. So let me start with, oh, I got to send a request to be able to share. So I sent that request to you.
You're good.
All right. So I'm starting off with, so I have a platform that I created in Discord. I don't know how many people have used Discord, but think of it like Facebook groups or Slack, something like that, which is a communication mechanism. My thing is that I have so many comments and ideas and activities that I'm not focused on one thing. I'm focused on all the things. And how do I triage that into a funnel system so that things don't get missed? And so here's a great example. I'm going to share my screen right now. So who can see this on Discord? Can you see?
We can see it.
Okay, so just super quick on the left, like I'll show, I have like a team chat, specific communication to VAs, skills, which are things that they would need to learn, right? If I'm working with buyers versus realtors, specific transactions after we're actually under contract, social media stuff, scripts, newsletters, partners, which are vendors. So each one of these could be a different task, right? So like a great example is this guy had reached out to me and he's asking for something. I don't know what he's asking for. Oh, I think renovation partner, right? And so I have a newsletter set up for vendors and partners. And so one of my VAs will go in and I'm basically just taking a screenshot, throwing it in Discord and saying, somebody claim this, right? And so each person has an area of responsibility when I start with the task. So if I say, hey, I'm starting this newsletter project, who wants to be responsible? It might take X number of hours a week. The person will claim it, and that's great. The second part of that is anytime I post it in there into newsletters or into partner, I know that person's going to grab that and follow up with it. And then I have that person train another VA so that I always have overlap in skill set. Now, what makes this kind of interesting is you still have to know how to do the newsletter, right? So I'm going to stop this and I'm going to share the next thing, which is I have two things that I want to share. And I'll put all these links in the chat. So Discord, if you want to join a Discord server to play around with, I shared that in the chat. The next thing I'm going to show you, and many of you have heard of this platform, it's called Loom. It's a free platform, but it does really cool stuff. And so I'm going to give an example of when I needed to show how to do my newsletters, for example. So I created this for the VAs to say, this is what I am currently doing, which they didn't know how to do, right? And so I had to learn how to do this to be able to share this with them. And so the purpose of this video is to create a newsletter in Constant Contact. Constant Contact is the current application that I'm using. There we go. Okay, so this one. So what I'm doing is I'm going through the full process for the VA on how I create these newsletters so that they have, just like you were talking about, Raj, how you edit your videos and how you go into ChatGPT to filter down that description. What are the nuances? That's all done. The reason why I use this app is because now it's more content that I can throw on my unlisted YouTube channel for training purposes, right? And then it removes filler words, it removes silence, it all auto edits essentially, and then it records the screen. So it's a really cool app for that. And then while I'm doing that, I'm usually also recording something like this, and I'll share it here, because let's be honest, most people won't watch a video. Even though you say, hey, watch a video to learn how to do something, they're not going to do it. So I also have this platform. Let me go ahead and share it in the chat. So where's our chat? Chat. Here. And it's called Tango. And basically it will follow my keystrokes and create a PDF out of it. Right. And so I can start off with like this example is how to add a signature to a CRM and to the MLS. Because I had so many agents or people asking me that, I was like, okay, well, let me go ahead and create a Tango. And so I was recording the Loom video while I was clicking this or having this record. So I was actually having two things record me, and I was basically just going through the process. As you go through the process, it automatically takes the screenshots and turns it into a live document or PDF that you can download. So I can share and export, and I can embed it in something, or I can export it as a PDF if I wanted to. Okay, so that gives me screenshots of the activity. So that way, as I'm giving it to the VAs, they know exactly step by step what to do. Because a lot of times, again, telling people what to do at a high level is not going to work. So I had to show them step by step. And this was early in the VA process. And then from there, you get the VAs that have to learn some of these skills. If they don't have this, now they're at the point where, okay, if you don't know how to do this, I want you to learn how to do this. And then I want you to record the steps on how to do this. And so that way I can watch your process, and the process is recorded, and the process is now something that can be delivered to other members of the team. So if you're showing somebody how to create a short for YouTube, great, record that process on these apps, send it over, or make sure that it's recorded, make sure that we have a document, and then make sure that you train another individual on this exact same thing. The last part of this process that I leverage is, I'll share this in here. Let me share the link for this one too. So a lot of people ask these questions. So it's another tool. So similar to Trello, I would say if Trello was iPhone, this is the Android version. I call it, it's called ClickUp, but it's a lot more robust, but sometimes that's a bad thing. But the idea here is I have a catch-all for my ideas. So if I go and I create and I drop something in my Discord that everybody has access to, that every VA has access to, or every member of the team, then great. I need you to take this, turn it into a task, and create a project that I can follow out of it. Somebody's going to have to be assigned this task. And then as we grow, all these tasks are sitting in here for people to claim and leverage and start working on. So because my tasks aren't just record YouTube videos, right? My tasks are, I have to get newsletters out. I have to get gifts to clients. I saw this really cool thing at a convention. How do I capture that information and turn it into something that's that I can disseminate and maybe turn into content, maybe turn into another presentation that I can reiterate somehow, all sorts of things. And so this is a wonderful platform for that. But you can do, what do you call it? You can do your different boards. So you can do a Trello board style if you wanted. You can do a calendar style if you wanted. You can do a list view. Like I said, it's very, very similar to Trello. It's just a lot more. This is also the platform that will record their time as they're doing the tasks. And then I can assign all numbers of people. And then there's even a dashboard that ties in with it too. I know we were running short on time, so I just wanted to kind of get through that and show a few things that might be beneficial.
It's not a competition, Ian. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know
Well,
that's really cool stuff. Yeah.
I kind of wanted to go back to what, like, it all falls into what you were saying. Everybody has a different process. And if you don't know your own process, you can't deliver it. You can't necessarily expect the VA to do your process without giving them some implicit instructions. And I think that's like kind of the big takeaway. And so I'm one of those people that it took me forever to figure out. It's like, dude, I just figure it out. I'm a figure it out person, right? So if I'm figuring it out, why am I not recording the process to figure it out so that I can say, okay, I figured it out. I recorded this. It's a little sloppy, VA. Here's my process. Now turn that into something a little more concise. Learn it. And now you should be able to teach this. Once you can teach this, then I know we've accomplished something. And now track it and do the work. Thanks.
Absolutely. And not to get off topic, that's where branding is the biggest element. Like what is your brand, right? Like what are you known for and how does that make your audience feel? And I think everything starts from that. I get a lot of people that are like, "Can I get your VA?" And it's like, "Well, what videos are you doing?" And this is when my VA had a little bit more room to get some work. And they said, well, I don't know, like what videos would you recommend? It's like, well, that's not the place to start then. I can't connect you with my VA if you don't have direction in that area. So I think at first, and I always learned this from Brad McCallum, he always said he learned every shot. Brad's got incredible home tours that he does in Calgary, and he's got an incredible YouTube channel. Brad started doing all of those shots on his own. And then when he brought in his videographer, it was just him and one other videographer. So he learned all of those things, the basics at least of it, before he could outsource it to other people. And that's what I've always prided myself on doing up front. Like the description for Instagram, I'm just getting started on there. So my first 15, 20 reels, I did the description myself. I went on ChatGPT. I started teaching ChatGPT. We can't do this. Stop using bold letters. Stop doing this. This is too many hashtags. Use the hashtag of the builder. All these different things I went back and forth on ChatGPT before I outsourced that to my VA. And so everybody, every little thing I think you need to do on your own. If it's tedious, that makes sense. Everything's going to be tedious when you first start, but it's doing those tedious things and then outsourcing it once you have good habits in place. One question I saw in here from Larry Tardy. Larry, you mentioned, do I pick the songs or allow my VA? I asked my VA to try to pick some songs, but usually if I'm starting something new, I'll give them a song of an example that I want. And if you're using like Soundstripe or Epidemic Sound or any of the ones online, usually if you have a song that you give them, it will give songs that they suggest that are similar. So that kind of gives them a head start. And then when we start doing videos, because I'm all about action and getting things done, once we start to see some videos, I'll start hearing a song that I hate. And I'll mention in Trello, hey, I hate that song, and here's why. It's too loud, it competes with my voice, and it sounds like an EDM song. It's too fast, right? Try to find something a little bit slower that doesn't have that big drum that's pounding against my voice, right? And if you say something like that to a VA, then they'll get it. They're going to be like, okay, I don't want something with a heavy beat on a drum. You know, they learn and improve. Once we have about 15, 20 songs, I have a card here that has a checklist of 20 songs. When we use one of the songs at the top of the list, my VA moves it to the bottom of the list, and all we do is shuffle out songs up and down. Easy as that. Anyone have any other questions? Feel free to unmute, throw them in the chat. We got a few more minutes here. Or if anybody has any feedback, let us know, or anything that's worked for you, feel free to unmute.
Yeah, I see a couple of people asking about where to find this again. So I believe that this is in Real Academy. You can also just DM Raj and myself, and we can get you a copy. And then, yeah, it'll be. There's also it's all on YouTube too.
Absolutely. And if anybody wants Jeremy Knight's Zoom password, I got it. Just DM me.
Yeah. So
if you want to be Jeremy Knight for a day, I got you. You know, just let me know.
All right, you better change this tomorrow. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think this is a fun conversation because there's so many variables to how somebody can leverage a VA. And I think if you haven't had a VA and you don't know where to start, listening to us talk about this is probably more frustrating than helpful, unfortunately. And that's why I think I have to go back to, and people told me this for so long, and I was like, I don't want to do it. But ultimately, it's what do you like? Figure out the tasks that you want to do, figure out how much time you're taking on them, figure out how much money that equates to. So if your billable hours are, $30 an hour, you like your personal, like what your worth is, which is how much do you expect to make in a year, or how much did you make last year, and divide that by the number of hours that you worked. That gives you your billable time. And so, if you're going to go speak somewhere or spend time doing something, if it's less than your billable time, then maybe you can outsource that to somebody else. Yeah. And so figure out what those tasks are that you're already doing. And if you have enough to be able to deliver to a VA, now you have some substance. Because just saying I need a VA is not the answer, unless you're just finding somebody to help you organize your chaos, which I did too. So I get that.
Yeah. And then you can be like an Ian, get a VA to manage all your other VAs. He's got a lot of VAs, but that's been taking some time, right? Like Ian didn't start there, and I didn't either, right? Like I've been at YouTube now for 3.5 years, And it's been a marathon, but it was a lot of late nights. It was a lot of after midnight figuring this type of stuff on my own. And then I realized I don't need to keep doing this and racking my brain on it. So perfect. I'm seeing a lot of thank yous, a lot of positive, a lot of good stuff. People saying they need to watch the recording again. That's great. Like I mentioned before, Agent Tactics, we run this every single Friday at 10 a.m. Central. Feel free to join. There'll be a recording after the fact, but I think being here live matters. You can interact with all of us, and we're signing out. Thanks for everybody showing up and for all the feedback. Appreciate all of you. Take care.